News sources have revealed China has silently been increasing its gold reserves and buying up billions of dollars of gold every month. What you need to know is the dollar is slowly dying and people are losing faith in fiat currencies. What this could lead to is central bank or government-backed digital currencies that could be tied to gold or other cryptocurrencies. What this is going to lead to is a big financial reset where new digital currencies are going to be created by governments like the US and China, and they could possibly be backed by gold or other cryptocurrencies. Just a few years ago, this was all crazy tinfoil hat talk, but guess what? That's always the case until it happens, and it's happening right now. In this video, I'm going to be going over how China is increasing its gold reserves, how the dollar is dying, how the yuan is gaining on the dollar, exactly what this new digital yuan could be, and how we can prepare for the greatest financial reset that is going to happen. Okay, let's get into it. So have a look and listen to this. China opens its doors to billions of dollars of gold imports, sources say. About 150 tons of gold worth 8.5 billion at current prices is likely to be shipped following the green light from Beijing, 4 sources said. 2 said the gold would be shipped in April and 2 said it would arrive over April or May. Everyone, this is huge. China has been slowly increasing its gold reserves for the past few years. And what does this tell you? What it tells me is that China knows that the dollar is slowly dying. It's not going to collapse overnight, but the way the US government is printing its currency and abusing its world reserve currency status is getting out of control. And I think the days of the dollar being the world reserve currency is numbered. Now it could go on for a few more years, but we are starting to see some signs that the dollar's global dominance is falling, and I'll get into that later. Listen to this. The size of shipments signaled China's dramatic return to the gold bullion market since February 2022. The country has an average imported gold worth about 600 million a month, or roughly 10 times Chinese customs data shows. But if you think that's crazy, have a look what they were doing in 2019, right before the deepest recession since the Great Depression. In 2019, its imports ran at about 3.5 billion a month, or roughly 75 tons. So it looks like they were preparing for something big in 2020. And what happened in March 2020? Gold prices, after they went down a bit, skyrocketed. It also says here, China is preparing a gold-backed digital yuan as Beijing greenlights purchase of billions in bullion. And why it may seem far-fetched now, I think this could be a big possibility, because what I'm seeing everywhere is people are losing faith in fiat currencies, and a lot of people aren't happy with how fiat currencies went off the gold standard and how the dollar went off the gold standard in 1971. And ever since then, people's purchasing power have been destroyed, and it may get to a point where people lose faith completely in fiat currencies, and China may see this, and so they're already preparing for what could be the collapse of fiat currencies, and they want to be ahead and they want to be the next global superpower. Listen to this. In 2018, the Chinese launched a gold-backed yuan-denominated oil futures contracts. These contracts were priced in yuan but convertible to gold, raising the prospects the rise of the petro-yuan could be the death blow for the dollar. So everyone, I've seen this, and I know a lot of you have seen this for years, and this all started in 2018. But what do most people think? They think, oh, if it doesn't happen next week, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't happen next month, I won't worry about it. These processes can take years to play out, but I'm here to warn you ahead of time so you can make well-informed, educated decisions and prepare yourself early, because if you wait until it happens, it's going to be too late. And have a look at this chart. This is crazy, and this should send alarm bells in your head. 2 weeks ago, the IMF reported that the global share of US dollar denominated exchange reserves dropped to 59%. In the fourth quarter, according to IMF's data released today, this matched the 25-year low of 1995. So guys, like I keep saying, people are losing faith in the dollar. You see it all over social media about the money printing, about people just going all in on stocks and taking on huge amounts of debt because they know that the dollar is going down, and they know if they keep their money in the dollar, they're going to be losing purchasing power every year. And what you have to know is China is leaps and bounds ahead of the US in this digital currency race. And the Federal Reserve is playing catch up now, and the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says that a digital dollar is a high priority, and there's 60 countries around the world that are currently developing a digital currency. So if you think this is just China doing this, you're mistaken. All major countries around the world are desperately trying to create their own digital currency, because during the next financial crisis, they're not going to be able to print money fast enough. They're going to run out of ink, they're going to run out of paper, they're just going to have to enter a few keystrokes and put more zeros on the ends of those trillions. And also, instead of government providing fiscal stimulus, central banks could send money to your digital wallet straight away, and they could say, look, you got to spend this in this area, in this type of industry, and your money expires by this date. And something else I thought that was interesting, have a look at this chart of the dollar versus Bitcoin. And this is why I say it's always good just to have a bit of exposure to Bitcoin, because I do think it's a hedge against the dollar going down, and it also is a hedge against inflation with its scarcity and limited supply. You might not agree with that, that's just my opinion. Another huge signal that something big is coming is Russia for the first time is holding more gold than US dollars. It now has $580 billion in gold reserves. So you're starting to see more and more countries trying to find ways to get around using the dollar, because the US can impose sanctions on many countries using their SWIFT system. But who knows, if these digital currencies do get backed by gold, this could give them an option to get around that. And Max Kaiser, the prophet that he is, he was predicting this in 2019. It says here in an interview with Keto News, China's secret gold-backed cryptocurrency to destroy the US dollar, Max Kaiser says. So he saw this coming in 2019, and I saw this coming around that time too, and I know a lot of you did. And that's why I keep preaching that you need to be informed, that even if the things I say in these videos don't happen next week, next month, it's better that I warn you now before it's too late. But what I think is going to happen is China won't want to destroy the dollar right now, because currently it holds around 3.4 trillion in US assets, treasuries, corporate bonds, and debt. But if the US does start to show sign of weakness, and if the dollar does keep weakening, and if it does get to the point where the writing is on the wall and China knows that the US dollar is about to collapse, that's when they could dump all this US securities, treasuries, and debt. And another interesting fact is, right now, China is the largest producer of gold by far. This is followed by Russia, and then my home country, Australia. And then you can see the US is in 4th place. So if people do want to go back to sound money, gold-backed fiat currencies or cryptocurrencies, or gold as money altogether, China is in one of the best positions right now to profit from that. Now, something you must know and something you must do is you have to look at the bigger picture, and you can't just take 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years of data, because what we tend to think is whatever happens in our lifetime, or what has happened in our lifetime, that's all there is and that's all that's going to be. And for all of us pretty much watching, the US has had the global reserve currency status for all of our lives. And we think it's going to stay like that forever. But have a look at this chart. In the 1400s, Portugal had the world reserve currency status. Then in the 1500s, it was Spain. Then in the 1700s, Netherlands. Then in the 1900s, France, Britain, until we got to today, the US. So everyone, don't be so foolish to think that the US can't lose its world reserve currency and that Rome can't collapse. It definitely can. Now, I'm not saying that this China gold-backed digital currency is going to be good. Have a look at what China can do, and what other central banks can do to gain more control and to pry more into your personal life and your personal transactions. Have a listen to this. On the other hand, the system offers the Chinese government total control over transactions in a system of controlled anonymity that allows them to know what amounts are being moved and where, enabling investigation when fraudulent patterns are detected. Making a currency programmable also offers other degrees of freedom, such as the possibility of already experimented with and introducing expiration date for some amounts when seeking to boost the economy. So like I've been saying, they could say, look, we'll give you $1,000, we'll dangle the carrot in front of your face to sell all your freedom, to sell your privacy, and a lot of people would sell it for just $1,000. But then instead of negative interest rate, they could give you money that expires. So they could give you $1,000 and say, look, you got to go spend this money in the next month, otherwise your $1,000 goes to $900, $800 until it goes down to zero after 6 months. This will just give the central banks and the government more power to pick what industries are the winners and what industries are the losers, and to gain more monopoly and control over the global economy. But not only this, they could implement negative interest rates, but right now they wouldn't want to do that, because then people can just take their money out of the bank. But if everything goes digital, there's no such thing as bank runs anymore, and people won't be able to take out their money out of the bank, and then they can bring in negative interest rates of 1, 2, all the way up to 5%, and people won't be able to do anything about it. And for people that are watching and wondering, why hasn't gold and silver been booming when inflation expectations are high? Well, have a look at this. Last year, JP Morgan was fined $920 million for manipulating the precious metals market. It says here, America's biggest bank, JP Morgan Chase, has agreed to pay more than $920 million to resolve US regulated authorities' claims of market manipulation in banks trading of metals futures and treasury securities over an 8-year period. And this is something that's absolutely crazy, and this is something I'm sick of. These big hedge fund institutions, they can rob people blind, they can manipulate the markets, and all they do is get a slap on the wrist, a speeding fine. $900 million for JP Morgan is nothing. And if this was just a normal person doing this, they could be in jail. But I guess the banks are too big to fail, and I guess they're above the law. And this, guys, has to stop. And everyone, have a look at this chart to show how much your purchasing power has been destroyed since 1913. As you can see here, in 1913, what $1 would buy you in 1913 is 30 Hershey chocolate bars, which will now be the equivalent of $26. In 1929, it'll buy you 10 rolls of toilet paper, which is now equivalent to $15.14. And as you can see, the trend continues. And what you have to know is inflation is really just a hidden tax, and it is theft. The government and central banks say how great inflation is because it boosts your wages, but what you have to know is inflation and the cost of living is going up much faster than your wages are going up. So if your wage goes up 2%, but the cost of living is going up 4%, over 10 years, it's going to get to a point where you're going to be working poor. And even if you have a full-time decent job, it may not be enough to live a good, comfortable lifestyle. Okay, so those are all the problems, but what are the solutions? And how can we protect our purchasing power and our wealth and build wealth and potentially have a great wealth transfer in the future? Well, this is not financial advice, but just my opinion, and what I'm doing to protect and build my wealth right now is investing in hard assets. Assets like gold, silver, farmland. These are all hard assets that will increase in value if inflation gets out of control, and will also increase in value if the dollar goes down. Now, I'm also diversifying into cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and also defensive stocks like grocery malls, because if inflation gets out of control and food prices skyrocket, grocery malls will benefit from this, and also they will benefit from if there's a bunch of panic and people just do runs on the supermarket and buy up all these consumer goods and start hoarding. Because what happens in high inflationary environments is people start buying in bulk to try to buy the goods before they increase day by day. And that's what's really going on here, everyone. It's not so much that asset prices are skyrocketing because people think that the companies are going to have great returns. It's because there's no other alternative. Because the government and central banks are forcing people into the stock market, because they're destroying their purchasing power of the dollar, they're forcing people into real estate for the same reasons, and they're trying to get people more and more reliant on the financial system and get people away from being self-reliant and investing in hard, real, tangible assets. So everyone, I hope that woke you up to what's really going on right now. What I think is going to happen soon, and I don't know exactly when, there is going to be some kind of big financial reset happen, because the current financial system, this current fiat currency system, is dying. And what you have to know is every fiat currency throughout history has failed, and this will too eventually. Now, for all my loyal viewers and subscribers still watching, you're awesome. If you haven't already, please tap that like and subscribe button. I'll keep you all updated on the latest global finance and economic news. If you're bored, I'll put up some other videos here. I'll see you there.